I never imagined my own daughter would look at me with hatred in her eyes. I stood there on my birthday, smiling, believing this day was about love. Then everything changed in one violent second. A full cake flew across the room and smashed into my face. Cream burned my eyes as people gasped in silence. My hands trembled and my heart stopped beating normally. My daughter pointed at me and screamed that the house was already hers. In that moment, I realized I was no longer her mother. I was just an obstacle she wanted removed. I raised her alone after her father passed away unexpectedly. There were nights I cried quietly so she would not hear me. I worked overtime while my body ached and my spirit felt tired. Every bill was paid before I bought myself anything. This house was built with years of exhaustion and silent prayers. Each wall remembers the sacrifices I made without complaint. I thought love meant giving everything. I never thought it would teach her to take everything. At first she laughed and joked about owning the house one day. I smiled, believing it was harmless talk. But slowly her tone began to change. The jokes disappeared and expectations took their place. She started talking like ownership was guaranteed. She stopped asking about my health or my happiness. Every conversation ended with the same question about the house. That was when I felt myself becoming invisible. She insisted on celebrating my birthday at home. She said she wanted something simple and peaceful. I believed her because I wanted to believe my daughter loved me. The candles were still glowing when she pushed papers toward me. She told me signing them would make life easier for everyone. My chest tightened as I read the words. They were property transfer documents. With shaking hands, I pushed them back and said no. Her expression changed instantly when I refused. Anger replaced every trace of affection. She grabbed the cake meant to celebrate my life. Before I could speak, it hit my face. I felt cream drip down my cheeks and into my mouth. Guests stared, frozen in disbelief. She shouted that I was selfish and useless. I stood there covered in frosting and shame. That was the most humiliating moment of my life. After that day, she disappeared from my life. There were no calls and no apologies. Instead, I heard stories about myself from others. She told relatives I was cruel and controlling. She said I was destroying her future on purpose. I spent nights alone in this quiet house, scrubbing cake from the floor and walls, trying to understand how love turned into hate. Sitting alone gave me time to think. I replayed every sacrifice I ever made. Every time I said yes when I felt tired. Every boundary I ignored for her happiness. That is when the truth finally hit me. Love without limits creates entitlement. Giving without boundaries teaches people to demand. And I had taught her too well. I realized crying would not protect me anymore. Staying silent would only invite more abuse. So I chose strength over fear. I met with a lawyer and explained everything. I secured my home and updated my will. Each signature felt heavy but necessary. This was not revenge. This was self-respect finally waking up. Weeks later, she came back acting sweet. She hugged me like nothing had happened. She called me mommy again with a soft voice, but something felt wrong in my chest. Soon she brought up the house again. I calmly told her everything was legally protected. Her smile faded instantly. That is when she realized control was gone. She accused me of betraying family. She said I loved money more than her. I looked at her without raising my voice. I reminded her of the cake, of the humiliation, of the disrespect. I told her she broke something that day. Something money can never fix. I did not erase her from my life completely, but I refused to be her victim anymore. I drew lines she had never been allowed to cross. No more shouting, no more demands, no more manipulation, no more attempts to make me feel small. I began saying no without guilt. I realized that saying no was not cruelty. It was survival. It was love for myself. The boundaries were my shield, and for the first time, I felt a quiet strength I had never known before. She began to fight these boundaries. She tried to twist words to guilt me into surrendering, but I held my ground firmly. Every demand she made reminded me of the cake incident. Every harsh word she spat reminded me of her betrayal. I understood now that entitlement comes at a cost, and the cost she paid was losing the power to hurt me. Her anger no longer frightened me. Her threats no longer shook my foundation. I had found my power again, and it came from protecting myself, not the house. I began living differently after that day. I no longer waited for her approval or her affection. I spent my time with people who truly cared for me. I laughed more. I cried less in solitude. I tended to this home as a sanctuary. Every corner reminded me of my resilience. Every wall carried a story of my love and my sacrifices. And every morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years, because I had finally reclaimed my life. Eventually, she began to notice the change. The house no longer intimidated her. The quiet dignity in my actions was stronger than any argument she could make. She stopped trying to force me. She tried to charm me, but it no longer worked, and I watched her frustration silently, without anger, because justice had been served in the most powerful way, not by yelling, not by revenge, but by standing tall and refusing to be broken. And in that silence, she understood. Some things cannot be taken by force. This house is not just walls or land. It is my story. It is my struggle. It is my love turned into resilience. I lost a daughter that day, but I found myself. No amount of rage, no amount of entitlement, no act of disrespect can ever take that away. Parents are human. We bleed, we love, we sacrifice. But we also deserve respect. I am a mother who will never be silenced, humiliated, or diminished again. And that is the ultimate justice.